Hey everyone, my name is Jimmy Saroka, and I've made an attempt to talk about things in the past that clearly I don't know all that about, but this time around, maybe the conversation can be a little different. So as me and my girlfriend move on to a better life, better things, it's time to find something to talk about because we have things that we're doing. Neftalia, welcome on. Word up, Chauncey, welcome on. But while we plan content for you guys, there has to be something to talk about. And, foster care is something I know a thing or two about. And it's something that does not discriminate based on race, religion, sexual orientation, or anything else. It is either you are raised in your birth family or you are not. It's very simple, but it's something that has a very, very large effect on the human psyche, on society as a whole, and it is extremely ignored far more than any other movement going on right now. And that doesn't make it more valuable, less valuable, or what have you, but it's definitely an individual fight that is not being fought because it is one that can very, very easily divide people because there are very, very few outlying factors that bring people, such as myself, together with other people who were either raised in foster care or adopted, things like that. It's not something that's, it's a very individualistic thing. But there's definitely a culture to be found within that. But most of us are just scattered. And I'm realizing how much of a problem that is because I see how much society misunderstands me. And I'm finally starting to figure out why. Because I have the most objective and unbiased opinion in reference to a lot of things because now that I let go of the idea that, this foster situation of mine was my family, I'm starting to realize that I am the ultimate outcast. But there's a lot of us out there who are displaced or have been displaced. And, it's one thing to be displaced from a physical home, displaced in society, within your own culture, within your own identity, either sexually or your race, but to be completely displaced psychologically, from your own family and have a lack of nurture, period, and a misunderstanding of your nature, period, essentially become rejected by most people, period. No matter what their fight is, you're always the outcast. And it's not cool. And I don't deserve to be ignored, and neither do other people who have been through what I've been through. And although deep down I really knew that this was the thing that had to come about, that this is the thing that God wanted me to talk about, I didn't want to be anybody's champion. I didn't want to bring it to light. I didn't want to make anybody feel like more of a victim than they had to be. And I think because I was so selfish about that and kept my mouth shut, all it really did was create me as a victim, and a lot of other people got hurt by me because I just didn't talk about the stuff that really applied to me. I wanted to talk about everything else because it hurts really bad and it's really, really hard. And especially I grew up in one family, and so that can be a position where it makes me look like I didn't necessarily grow up in foster care, and I very much did. And it's something that needs to be talked about, and it's something that should, for being through the fire, I can be an advocate for it now. I'm not perfect. I've made my mistakes. But if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be me because there is nobody else in my position who's going to stand up against most of the world, including those who have their own agendas and those who have their own fights to fight. Nobody's interested most people are not interested in the fight of the foster or the fight of the displaced person from their own family because it's people say, well, that's just an individual thing. It's just you, but it's just not true. It's not true. It's something that, there has to be similarities within society that can bring people like myself to meet and be around other people like that. But it's just amazing to me and disgusting and sad how as we live in this society of, as different cultures are beginning to rise up, whether it's feminism, whether it is LGBTQ, whether it is, the African American culture or the Latino culture, everyone's standing for their culture. And I think that's wonderful. While those of us who have no culture, who have nothing, continue to be ignored and continue to be just blasted until the point where most of us are either incarcerated, are dead, on drugs, or never make it past a 9-to-5 that you make minimum wage. And those are facts. Those are verifiable facts. And whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're gay or straight, or any other identity, not being born into your natural family and being raised within an environment that is familiar to you or that you understand, and not receiving the proper help for infant's trauma that is built into your infancy, like built in at infancy, it's never worked through. It's not even addressed. And I guess that's my main point, is that it's not even addressed. And this is what I should have been addressing 5 years ago when I first started in my career. I shouldn't have let it go, but I wanted to let it go because I wanted to show love to the people who had raised me. I wanted to show respect to the people who, had tried to help me along the way. But I have to say it the way it is, and that is that the entire system itself for foster care and foster youth is extremely corrupt. And this is state to state throughout our entire country. And no one is speaking about it because the moment someone does, especially someone like me, they are snuffed out very quickly. And I've seen it done in my own state. And it's a scary thing. And it's something that happened to my parents. As crazy as they are, and yes, my biological parents, in my personal opinion, were lazy and they were bad people. But what happened to me in my infancy did happen. And so, regardless of what my parents had done, the state had also done a poor job with it. And the family I was raised in did a poor job. They were not educated. They were not taught how to care for someone of my stature, to care for someone who didn't have the mental resources, who had experienced that trauma in infancy, and it affected my developmental abilities. It really stunted my growth. And the only reason I made it out of it and came to the point of mental aptitude that I am now is because I fought tooth and nail, and I believed in myself and believed that I was right about me. And so I fought very hard to get there. And while a lot of people think I'm weak, these people, I have to say, it is their greatest weakness that they do not know true struggle, and that they may look at me and say that I don't know struggle. You don't know what it's like to be in your own head and be told that you're invalid your entire life. And then you reach the age of 25 and you finally find yourself, and quite literally, you are invalidated constantly as if you are not even human. So yes, I agree that Black Lives Matter. Yes, I agree that LGBTQ lives matter. Yes, I am uneducated on the cultures of both of those peoples. I am educated on the understanding of those who come from my form of background. So that's what I will speak on. And understand that if I have any disrespect or I speak poorly on whatever your culture is, I apologize, because I'm no professional on your culture. And I am uncultured, and I want to learn, and I want to be an advocate for my own people and for the people who have lived that way. But ultimately, it is the people that choose who's going to be that champion, who's going to be the person to step up and make that difference. And I would like to become cultured. I'd like to learn more about who you guys are and what has to be done in order to be able to help? Because the hardest part about advocating for people in foster care or people who come from foster care is there are, like I said, it's just there's no specific culture to it necessarily, at least not right now. And where that culture exists, it is mostly within crime. It is mostly within bigotry and a lot of different ill-seated behaviors. And people like myself are often swept under the rug and assumed to be criminals or some outcast in society that needs to be silenced. And it's very sickening because as every other culture is fighting for themselves, they're also snuffing us out. I have people from all walks of life who are advocating for their own people and advocating for their own cause. But the only thing I see in common with my culture or the culture that should exist around, people who are displaced is being bigoted against and downtrodden and treated as subhuman, even in the 21st century. And yeah, slavery was a bad thing. I agree. But as it stands, it definitely still exists. It does. And I will tell you that as a human being in the 21st century, I am not some privileged white kid, and it might be painted as the perfect little situation that I just look like a bratty little white kid. Oh, I get it. I do. But this is my life. And no matter what you think you see, you don't know just how much I've been through and the pain that I've endured. And it goes completely unheard because of our undereducated, completely maladapted society that refuses to believe that humans can exist beyond their own tribe. And as I sit here, there are so many different ways that I've seen growing up that are sick. And let me explain that. Growing up, I would see the kids, I may have explained this before, I would see the kids who are drinking and hanging out in their rich, their nice big house, and they're just sitting there. They'll sit in a circle around their fireplace in the house, drinking beer, drinking wine or whatever, and they think they're so cool, right? These teenage kids. And this is when I was a teenager. Then out in the woods, now this is where I grew up, out in the woods, you got the country kids, right? You got the kids with the trucks and they're drinking their beer around a fire. You know what the kids around the fire are doing out in the woods? Making fun of the kids that are in the mansion. You know what the kids in the mansion are doing? Making fun of the kids in the woods. It's insane. Now, those subcultures are beginning to fuse. You're starting to see a lot of country stars mixing in with pop, and cultures are coming together, and that's awesome. But one culture that still remains completely ignored is a subculture of those who have gone through pure displacement psychologically from their own family. And I don't envy anyone who was born to their natural family and was raised in an unhealthy family. I think on some levels that may be even worse than being displaced. But that's not my place, I don't know that experience. I can't relate to that experience. What I can relate to is being in a system where I still remember going when I was around 16. I would go to these groups, and that was I had this foster experience, and I was very suppressed, and my personality was like not allowed. Like it was literally as if there was something wrong with me. I was treated, and it wasn't nearly as bad as a lot of foster kids got in that way, but mine was like ironically, if you ever saw, because I got a lot of vigilantes out here trying to, tell me who I am. If you ever saw Batman, was it The Dark Knight Rises, or which one was it with, that we just watched? Where Ra's al Ghul's daughter sticks a knife in Batman, and she says, it's the slow knife that slips through the bone. And that has been my human experience to this day. That is the most accurate description that I can give you of my human experience to this day. And please understand that I do not victimize myself. I am a victim of society. Trust me, I am. But I'm not victimizing myself. I'm standing up. I'm getting out. We're living a life of our own in a good way. And at the same time, it's very important that this cause be advocated for. And as much as I'm going to be completely honest with you, it is the last thing I want to do. I am not all that interested in spending the rest of my life fighting for a cause that is almost completely ignored by all of society. When I think to myself, I could just put it down, make a decent paycheck and just walk away. But for all that I've been through and how many more people there are out there that really do know how I feel and what I've been through, realizing that a normal, regular person making it through 25 years of life and then committing a crime or doing something wrong and, of that pretense, or, when you saw me in a very unhealthy state, that, oh God, okay, well, that's imprisonment, done, boom, got it. That's fair. But when someone is born into a position where they are 100 points behind on the scoreboard, and then by the age of 25, they reach 0, and they're told, hey, you lost the game. It's not about getting an 8th place trophy. We all get one shot at this. I get that. But some of us are born in a deficit. We are born into debt. And it is a psychological debt. It is something on a level that most people do not seem to be able to relate to or understand yet. But as science begins to uncover a lot of, the deeper realms of psychology and how these things work, that dissociation, that displacement from a natural born family can have a very, very large effect on the way that a person develops. And when we expect them to be able to just coalesce into basic society, as it were, that most people live in and can find a way to get along, I always struggle with that. And I always struggled with that. And I don't have a disability. And that's the difference. There are people who have natural born disabilities, clearly. I'm not one of them. I was set into a deficit. I had a lack of nature, a lack of identity with my nature, meaning my own family, a lack of identity with my nurture, because I was always outcast from that nurture. And on top of that, my personality is very different. And now, here I sit, completely ignored and being deceived by those who always claimed to be the most honest with me. And any lie that can cover that up, these people are willing to tell. And I have a feeling this goes far deeper than anyone's ready to have a conversation about. And I might have said you guys before, and you might have heard me say this. You may have heard me say this before. I stopped saying it because it does make me sound rather paranoid. There are many, many, many reasons why me keeping my mouth shut is a healthy decision. The foster care system as a whole is a racket. It's a money racket. The entire thing, the entire way that it's set up, there is not one piece of it that truly works. And I don't know whether or not that is an intentional thing. What I do know is that it doesn't work. What I do know is that most of us are either dead, incarcerated, on drugs, or currently committing crimes by my age. I did not become that person. Almost did. I don't have to turn around and advocate for people that come from where I come from. But if I don't do that, I feel like a thief. And I can't live with myself like that because I made it out. And regardless of what anyone else wants to think, anybody that disagrees is that's on you. And, I'll just have to in time help you to better understand that I got myself through it. Kate didn't get me through it. My biological family didn't get me through it. My foster family didn't get me through it. The county or the state didn't get me through it. My country didn't get me through it. The internet didn't get me through it. I utilized whatever tools I could. I appreciated every relationship I had and received help where I could. I'm thankful to those who helped guide me along the way, but recognize that I was born completely displaced. Me being here right now is my doing. And yes, there are some things that have gone poorly, but now things are great. And they're going to be better and better every day. And I invite you to be a part of that process. If you were born into foster care, if you're in a foster family, if you're an adult who was raised in foster care, if you were adopted. My best friend growing up is an African-American guy. He's a real nice dude. You've seen him on camera a couple of years ago. I had him on, or even last year, I think it was. We had him on the show with us, me and Kate. Excuse me. And real good dude. And he was adopted. And he's a real good dude. And being adopted, that can be very difficult, because here's the piece that a lot of natural born people miss, and that they're not going to understand. Not without someone helping them through it, is that difference in personality between you and the person you're raising, or you and the person who's raising you. It can be a really, really big deal. And even within natural families, sometimes, you can have a child who their personality comes out very differently. But temperaments, everything. And if it's the wrong setup, if it's the wrong match, then it can lead to a very volatile situation. And up until now, the foster care system as a whole, for the most part, has just been, point and shoot. It's been a shot in the dark. Like, well, let's try this. This is, hey, we found a family who's willing to take you on. Don't worry, you don't burden them too much. And something I always heard growing up was, you're lucky to be here. How can you disrespect me? You should consider yourself lucky. And, imagine saying that to a child, that they are lucky that they have a family. There is no way, shape, or form that should or ever could be seen as anything other than abuse. That is abuse. You do not say to a child that they are lucky to have a family. That is sick and depraved. That deserves punishment. I'm very proud of society as a whole, and I hope you are too, for how far we've come as a nation with our sensitivity to those who have been downtrodden. But it is also still on some level very, very sad, the level of neglect still being provided, the lack of tenderness being provided to those who are completely displaced and have been completely displaced their entire lives. And to be displaced even within your own country. To not have a family, to not have a code that you can cling to where you're accepted. I know there are those of you out there that can relate to that, whether you're American or not. So if you're out there, if you are one of us, one of the most displaced, hit my DMs, because it's about time I make friends with people from my tribe. Hopefully you're not a criminal. Hopefully life hasn't taken you down a path that you couldn't control, and that you made poor decisions because everyone else told you that there was something wrong with you. And as you were completely ignored and neglected, that it led to places you didn't belong. I don't know where I belong, but it is definitely on planet Earth. And there will not be one more human being that genuinely gets away with, by getting into my head, the idea that I am invalid as a human being. Because that is a position of false power that many have tried to take in my life. And as these people say they fight for equality, I was being abused long before I had done anything wrong. Long before, even before the internet. And when I hit the internet, you want to know why people are so mad? Because I'm a foster kid that's still alive. Because I'm a foster adult that is not incarcerated. Because I am a displaced person with every possible privilege ripped from me, and I'm coming out regular and healthy and on top, and that doesn't fit with them. They don't like that. Trust me, they don't like that. That is their main problem, that they were born into a natural family, that they were raised in a way where they had all the privileges. They messed it up, and now that I'm getting ahead, they got problems. and they think they can fix those problems by bringing me down. Well, guess what? I'm up once and for all. Welcome to my life. I appreciate you being here. And before another one of you decides to try and raise hell to stop me, the only thing you're going to do is piss off the public, the same way that happened with the LGBT community, the same way that happened with the Latino and the African American community. The only thing you're doing is rising us up, raising us up. So good. Batten the hatches. You know, do whatever you got to do. But this is going to get so much bigger than you're ready for. And I really would not recommend trying to turn it into a war or anything inappropriate. Because the only thing you're going to do is incite fear into people like me who may just want to live a regular life. You come down on me, and the only thing you're going to do is incite fear with people who come from my background, a similar background to me that you may not understand. Most of you don't understand. Some of you will. The only thing you're doing is suppressing a people and discriminating. That's just how it is. And I have a feeling that a lot of people out there who have been through foster care or have been displaced from their family can completely relate to being treated subhuman. I grew up in an area where African Americans were treated subhuman. I was raised in an area where Latino people are still treated subhuman. I was raised in an area where homosexuality in the LGBT community is non-existent. And still, to this day in the 21st century, if you identify as anything other than straight, you are not human. In America, that's a problem. So I say, instead of rising up and being angry and fighting, let me tell you, as a foster adult, I have zero interest in fighting. I think everyone has their way of doing things. Some people want to have parades. Some people want to have strikes or riots, what have you. Everyone does things their way. My way, peaceful. Why? It's the only way that's going to work. It's the only way that's going to work. And I'm hoping that we can all come together and we can all learn something from one another, because I don't know much about you, but I'm letting you know right now, and some of you already see that there's not a whole lot of people that know a whole lot about me, but they think they do. And what they're doing is trying to apply what they see to things that they're familiar with. And it's never going to fit. It doesn't fit. There's similarities. It's not the same. Because there's a part of my subculture that I've been ignoring. And that is the displacement from my nature and a lack of nurture. Let me help you understand, because I am not seeking to be understood because I'm a victim. I am one. But I'm seeking to help you understand me in hopes it will help you understand yourself better, help understand people of my stature better, people who have been through what I've been through better, and recognize that there is a subculture that's completely ignored of people who are just being swept under the rug in a Nazi-esque culture that's apparently, according to society, is non-existent. But we're treated like we're just a detriment to society, period, and that we're not worth the work. You know why we're worth the work? Look at my ability here as a human being. Have I DM'd you? You may have gotten a DM from me. I seem like a normal person, don't I? Isn't it just impossible? How is it possible that after all this, that I could sit and have a conversation with someone who's spitting in my face? It's not because I'm a Christian, because I'm not. It's because I'm a human being. And I'm objective about this. Because being completely displaced, I see so many more angles than people who have the privilege of existing within one subculture, that they have a tribe that they can identify with on a level that I cannot relate to, on a level that I do not have. And that even within the culture of the white man, the white male, the white straight male, right? The Anglo-Saxon, I can't relate to them. Seriously, I am outcast, even in what would be considered my natural society, my natural tribe, completely disengaged, treated subhuman in every culture. I'm not a sociopath. I'm not a psychopath. I'm not a narcissist. I'm not any of those things. I'm a very complex man And most of us who go through foster care are very complex people. We have deep minds, deep hearts, big hearts. And those mental issues often come from the behavior of others, treating us as subhuman. And when we're not taught how to cope or get through it, we're fed pills, a perfect cash cow for the pharmaceutical industry. The perfect cash cow. Trust me. There's a lot of things that I know and that I've learned, things that I haven't wanted to speak on out of fear of death. And I mean fear of death. If anyone's interested in moving beyond the things that you've seen so that you can learn what there is to know rather than just what you think you see, message me as soon as possible, because as I start to come out with this stuff and have conversations about it, if you think my safety is at risk right now, give it a couple of weeks, give it a couple of months. But for me, my main objective, if I truly am going to expel the things that I know and begin to come out about this stuff and really make an effort to help those downtrodden in society, and actually, make a difference. The reason I'm so scared to make a difference is because I have been rejected my whole life. What appears to be apathy, it is fear. I want to help. There are ways I can help. My help has been completely rejected my entire life, my ability to help, and that's why I stopped helping. And I only ever tried to take because I saw everyone else doing it. I said, okay, well, I guess that's what I have to do. And even when I took, I did it legally. I did it legally. But I was so mad. I was so mad. And even the way any of it went, I didn't even want to do it. I didn't even want to do it that way. But what do when your entire family, when everyone around you says that you are invalid as a human being unless you live the way they say? I am finally learning that I don't have to be afraid of a little town, of a small town. I don't have to be afraid of a local police force or a sheriff's department. I don't have to be afraid of a city, because that city is minute in size compared to the people that know my name. And what they're going to think about my name has a lot to do with what I'm going to say moving forward. So I'm going to be as careful with my words as I can. And I'm going to advocate for my own human life, because I almost just laid down and died and let someone else tell me that I shouldn't exist. And I'm never going to do that again. I am not a violent person. I have zero. And let me make this clear in case I ever get framed for anything like my father. I have zero interest in violence. Zero. What you saw between Caitlin and I, it was a socially induced psychosis. It was a manipulation of war tactics by hardened criminals that came to me as wolves in sheep's clothing. Whether a consented effort or just individuals who really, really thought they could control my life, it happened. And Caitlin is my witness. She knows their names. I know their names. And I'm not going to be saying their names because I'm no rat. These were regular people who knew how to manipulate a vulnerable kid and make them dance on screen for them. And that's exactly what I did for a really long time. So what you saw on screen, it wasn't even me. I have never been myself my whole life, not until now. And even now, I still don't fully communicate well who I am or, what I want to say. I am terrified. And people see that fear and they say, oh God, okay, we can take advantage of that. We can take that and mold it into what we want. And, that's the most dangerous piece of being born into foster care, is it's the deepest temptation to say yes, 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 yes to other people who are willing to give you an identity. And I don't know who of you can relate to that. We all want an identity. Well, imagine having none, and having to either formulate it yourself, or there are a million different options out there that I could choose someone else's identity for me. because I refuse to be a product in society of the greatest form, I'm completely rejected. So I say to anyone out there who is extremely malleable psychologically the way that I am, there is a way through. Focus on you. Get yourself stable. Don't let other people choose for you who you are. And if they try to tell you you're invalid, they are wrong. And they will always be wrong. Whether you are Black, white, Latino, African American, Native American, Indian, European, Asian, African. We said that one, right? Many different kinds of African. It's the point I'm trying to make. Psychological displacement in foster care. It doesn't judge. It's like death. It doesn't care who you are. It's coming. And when you're separated from your family, from then on in, you will always be a different person. And to say that any person who's gone through that has to be responsible for that piece of it is sick. The system, that piece of the system, it needs to be healed. It needs to be shifted or just torn apart and something in replacement. I don't know. I'm not there yet. You've heard me say this kind of thing before. I'm not there yet. But what I will say is that as I build my empire, as Caitlin and I build our life together, that's definitely going to be a piece of an advocacy that exists within the realms of what I do and who I am. That'll be a way in which I give back, because it's a way where I can be the most effective with the funds that I receive, with the money that I make, and with the skill set that I do have. Whether families become more educated, whether there becomes a system of education to teach the parents, whether it is, that homes such as orphanages, things like that. This is, guys, those pieces of it, yes, they're so far out of my realm. But what I can relate to is psychological displacement. I can relate to being completely alone on planet Earth and quite literally feeling as though you're not even human. And I mean, like, literally. I was treated so subhuman for so long that I quite literally did not identify with humanity. Meaning, like, I felt as if I didn't exist. And it seemed as though I didn't exist. Everything I did, everything I said, I mean everything, was misunderstood on some level. And it got worse and worse. And because I focused so hard on trying to convince other people, other than just looking in the mirror and saying, bro, you are right, it's really, really hard to admit you're right. Because if you admit you're right, it means you are alone for the most part. I'm right. And if you can relate to me, look yourself in the mirror and know that you are right too. You're not crazy. You're not crazy. The people invalidating you are wrong. They are. They don't understand you. And whatever language you speak, it may be a foreign language to most people, but it's still your language. It is valid. It is who you are. And you have to like who you are. What I will say is, if you are someone who's psychologically displaced like that, it is very important that you are careful and cautious with the way in which you formulate how you think, because it could lead real bad places if you're not careful. And if you are having any thoughts of either suicide, homicide, or anything, that would clearly not be appropriate, seek help, because that is when the line becomes crossed and you're not a martyr. You're not. And that's what's important to understand is, as the fight for, understanding foster a bit better moves forward, it's not done through violence. It's not done through fighting. It's not done through arguing. It is done through complete focus on oneself and drowning out all the noise of people who do not understand you, and answering DMs of people who are willing to listen. And more importantly, and hear this one clear, people who tell you about themselves. This is going to be a confusing one for those of you who can relate to me on the level of foster care. A really big green flag to know when you are in the presence of someone who deserves your time, someone who genuinely is going to hear who you are. Pay attention to how much they share about who they are. I know that sounds counterintuitive, like they're being selfish. No, don't make it about you. If you really want to find out someone's intentions, and figure out whether or not they're in your corner. And they genuinely want to figure out, like they genuinely see you are human. People who validate with, people who feel validated in the presence of someone else, and people who feel heard, and like they can identify with someone, are going to share who they are. So if that person is sharing with you who they are, they feel comfortable with you. That is someone who's going to treat you human. They are treating you human, right? I've had many, many people listen to me throughout the first 25 years of my life. You know how much of them they've told me about? Almost zero. Almost zero. That is a quick identifier whether or not someone sees you as a human being. That they identify with your existence. But plastering that label, Foster, boom, literally, you don't exist to a lot of people. And here's the mind-blowing part. It's going to be hard for a lot of people. I'm going to say this. Even right now, you may not see me as human, and you might think you do. There are a lot of people who genuinely want to care, but they were never educated on it. They have no experience with it. And the things that they do know cloud their judgment on who I am. And so I think a lot of the time I have been disemboweled socially or disemboweled emotionally by other people with the intention of helping me and loving me by saying, hey, you belong in this box. I mean, I love you. This is my way of showing it. I love you. This is my way of showing it. You're going to fit in this box. Come here, come here, come here. It's where you belong. Something you've heard from me for a long time? What'd you hear from me? People always try to fit me in a box, and they just they're hurting me and blah blah blah, paranoia. They were trying to help me. I get it now. I do. They were trying to help me. Well, guess what? They're still wrong. They're still wrong. We are all different. And when it comes to the foster system, when it comes to people who do not have that upbringing, we are all different. But there must be something that us fosters share in common. And it's time that we work to figure it out before we continue to be forgotten in society, because we are completely forgotten in society for the most part. So I'll stand for it in whatever way I can, but it is really going to start with me becoming more cultured. So for those of you who are insulted by me, I apologize genuinely. Educate me. Be patient with me, please. Recognize I want to learn and that my ignorance is due to a lack of education, negligence. I don't want to be dissociated from you. But my dissociation was not a choice. I did not choose to be dissociated psychologically from being able to relate to others. But I'm learning how. People say that's impossible. It's the 21st century. Don't you tell me it's impossible. Help me out. Tell me about you. I was on Twitter and I was responding to people, and they were talking to me about the rainbow, the pride rainbow, and I had put the different hearts in a row, and I posted it, and I'm trying to relate. I'm trying to be positive. I know that I am just reckless, but do I just not? I want to relate. I want to know people. I do care. And somebody lashed out at me and they go, "Oh no, you did that wrong." Blah, blah, blah. And the person who I had sent it to saw my intentions. They saw my intentions. And the guy goes, assuming it was a guy, goes, because it was a troll type account. He goes, defended me against the other person. And I really appreciated that. And then they had DM'd me and we had a conversation. And so I still don't know how to make the pride flag with the hearts, but you can message me and tell me. And same goes for the African-American community. Like, people don't want to admit that I am a minority. Nobody wants to admit the fact that I am a minority. This minority is a subculture minority, but it is one that is critically important to the psychological world as a whole, whether it is within science or society. We are the next evolution to understand, like, those of us within foster care or who went through foster care can be a very large example and a learning experience for people who live within the natural world, who have their natural families. It can help you to understand one another better. Another example of that is the family I grew up in. I remember we always used to fight against the devil, right? Oh my God, the crazy stuff, right? And it was always avoid the snares of the devil and the wickedness of the devil. And that's, to me now, that's just crazy talk. It doesn't, if it's valid to you, then it's valid to you, but you need to understand where I stand, right? That's my truth. Is it scares me because when I lived by that perception, I got boxed in my brain and I wasn't able to get out of that. And, that pathology, it works for some people, but it didn't work for me. So I needed to find my way out of it, and I did. But it's like, it was always this idea that the enemy would divide the family, right? Is that the enemy's agenda is always to divide the family. But ironically enough, as I sit here, I have people that are accusing me of dividing families. And the only thing that I've done is start a family. That's what I didn't divide a family. Like, the girl's an adult, Kate's an adult, she's my girlfriend. Oops. And so, like, that's where it's at, and that's where it's pretty much always been. And we let other people convince us otherwise, to the point where we were back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And now we're just chilling. And our definition is our definition of what that looks like. And so there's no dividing of families. What I do see is families dividing themselves by trying to stand against someone else. And I think that's happening within most other subcultures, is that people are standing against, they're trying to stand for their people. But let me tell you, as an objective viewer who is outside of every culture, I clearly don't exist with, right? You guys say, right? I'm uncultured. I can't relate to people. Okay, you win. Then I will say that there is one common pattern. There is one common pattern among all cultures. When they fight against another culture, they lose. Violence begets violence. Fear begets fear. When we fight, we will fight ourselves. It doesn't work. It has been proven throughout history that war does not create peace. It just doesn't. So, I'm no hippie, and I'm not saying that not having war is the answer. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm a world citizen. I'm a human being. I'm still trying to figure out where I stand on a lot of things, because I'm not, I'm clearly not all that educated on most of it. But I would like to be. So if you really value your cause all that much, recognize that people like us are very, very smart, and we're the ones being ignored, and we could really, really help, because we have an outside perspective of most things. We have an objective perspective of most things. But that feeling of illegitimacy for not fitting in oftentimes leaves us just completely devoid of love, and just feeling out of place, and like there's no reason for existence. But really, just that objective perspective, it offers a fantastic viewpoint and a way to help society rebound off of itself in a lot of different ways that it currently is not, as everyone's, fighting their own wars within their own cultures. Who's really coming together? I think it's important we start doing a better job of that. So for anyone who didn't see the IG live, things have changed. Things are moving on. If you're not on board yet, if you're not caught up yet, I recommend getting caught up. If you want like personal conversation, hit the DMs. I'm answering people all day long. You ask Kate. That's part of why Kate's picking up the schedule. Like, as things are picking up, Kate's job is getting harder too, getting more difficult. She's learning a lot. I'm very grateful that Kate's here for that, because I now get to spend a whole lot of time in the DMs. Thank you, my love. I get to spend a whole lot of time in the DMs with you, which is super cool. It's what I've always wanted, but it was always so hard to be able to juggle all of that together. So like I said, for the next evolution of this, as things get bigger and better, and we begin this advocacy, it's very important that we get organized very quickly, because there are a lot of people who would love to see this fall apart, in order that they could say that their tribe is more important than ours. But realistically, we are a sub-tribe that exists within many all tribes, essentially, on some level. And it's time that things get more intricate and we get deeper to understanding the human mind and how it can be affected by a lack of nature. Because yes, what you're seeing me here to some degree is unnatural. But really not at all. And I have been brainwashed into believing that I am something unnatural. That's depraved. And that's abuse. So I'll talk to you all very soon. Love you, and goodbye.